targets in Syria after a rocket from that area attacked the Golan Heights. It is the most direct confrontation between the two countries, and it comes just a day after the U.S. withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal. Here to discuss this and so much more, we have former U.S. ambassador to Russia under the Obama administration, Michael Mcfaul. He is the author of the new book, From Cold War to Hot Peace, about Russia and his time spent as ambassador. Mr. Ambassador, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's start with that news about this increasing tension between Israel and Iran. We just had Congressman Carlos Curbelo, Republican of Florida, on. He said that he thinks that the White House should consider military action against Iran if this isn't tamped down. What do you think is next?
Well, it's very serious. Let's be clear. It's very scary when you have these two countries firing rockets at each other. I think it underscores the need to stay in Syria. I hate to say this, the president thinks otherwise, but if we pull out of Syria, the fight that we have been doing there, it's called Operation Inherent Resolve, and we leave a vacuum to where we've been fighting ISIS, that is going to increase Iranian presence, Iranian military presence in Syria, and I think this is another small indication of why that is imprudent.
Okay, let's move on to your bailiwick and what your book is about and your expertise as ambassador. And that's what's going on with Russia. So what do you make of these new revelations, okay, that this Russian oligarch, Viktor Vekselberg,
yes,
paid through his company and then through his cousin's company, the U.S. affiliate of the Russian company, $500,000. That's at least what reportedly Michael Cohen pocketed from this Russian oligarch. What are we to make of this connection?
I think it's very strange. We need to know a lot more. You know, when I was ambassador, I knew Viktor Vekselberg. I used to work with him. I know his businesses well in Russia.
And tell us about him. I mean, what were your impressions?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, he's one of the old oligarchs, and he would hate it if we were calling him oligarch, by the way. He would like us to refer to him as a businessman. He made his money in the 1990s before Putin. Other oligarchs who are closer to Putin, they made their money because of connections to Putin. That's not Mr. Vekselberg. He actually has a pretty difficult relationship with the Kremlin, and he just had a couple of people out from his company arrested by the Kremlin a couple months ago. And number two, he fancies himself as being a Western-oriented business person. He's the leader of something called Skolkovo, for instance, inside Russia, their attempt to create a Silicon Valley in Russia. So he's not one of those insiders with Putin. He's got difficult relations with Putin. And so my only hypothesis, and we need to know more to understand, is that maybe he was trying to use his connections in New York City, a place he spends a lot of time. His daughter lives in New York City, to demonstrate to Putin that he could be useful to Putin to create this back channel through with Michael Cohen.
Speaking of strained relations with Putin, you had some. You
Yes.
write in your book about how complicated it got. You were on the receiving end of some of his attacks. Here's what you write in the book. I also tried to distinguish between our government's disdain for authoritarian policies pursued by the Kremlin and my respect for the Russian people, culture, and history. The Kremlin hated that. As one person close to the Kremlin revealed to me, my obvious love for Russia drove the Putin government nuts. I would have been a much easier target if they could have portrayed me as a Cold War Russia-phobe. So what has it been like for you to watch this administration, the Trump administration, trying to, it appears, make nice with Putin and all of these meetings and these secret meetings and these attempts at back-channeling with Putin? How do you interpret all of that?
Well, just to remember, thanks for reading from the book, the reason he was attacking me personally and the Obama administration and America was that he thought we were trying to undermine his regime. He thought that I was sent to Russia to foment revolution against him, and that's why he went after me in these very personal ways. To speed forward now, President Trump doesn't talk about democracy and human rights hardly at all, and most certainly not in relation to Russia. That's music to the Kremlin's ears. That's what Putin wants. And I want to be clear, I support engagement even with Vladimir Putin, even with President Putin, if you're going to do it to achieve some concrete American national security outcome. What I don't think you should do is to have a chummy relationship and to talk about good relations as the goal in your relationship with Russia or for any other country for that matter. The goal should be something concrete. The means is to talk and to have engagement.
Let's talk
about. I think
about
the president gets that mixed up from time to time.
Okay. And I mean, since all of our intel officials warned that there will be more election meddling, that Russia is bent on that, what is Putin's end goal?
Well, with that, his large goal, let's just be clear, his large goal is to weaken the liberal democracies in Europe and the United States. He sees us as the enemy, he sees us as a competitor, and he has a long-sustained goal to try to diminish our power in the world and weaken our institutions, things like NATO, and peel off some of the countries that are in NATO to weaken our alliance. The short-term goal about disinformation, I would say, was two things in 2016 and maybe just one today. 2016, he very clearly wanted candidate Trump to win, and he wanted Secretary Clinton to lose.
Because he didn't like Clinton, just to be clear, he didn't like Clinton. He thought that Trump would be a friendly...
Exactly. Very rational. I mean, just look at what candidate Trump said. He said he might look into recognizing Crimea as part of Russia. He wanted to lift sanctions. He criticized NATO, and he didn't say a word about democracy. It was very rational for President Trump to prefer him. But he didn't just sit on the sidelines and have preferences. He intervened to try to help him win the election. Whether it had an impact on the election, that's a different matter. His intention, however, and his actions were clear. There's a second reason, however, that he did that, and I think the evidence for this now is overwhelming. He wants to foment and division and increase polarization in American society as a way to distract us from being a leader in the international world. And I think he has accomplished that. I think he has helped to magnify some of our internal divisions. That means we're focused at home instead of abroad, and that's in Putin's interest.
That is a sad commentary, but we appreciate you being here with all of your expertise. The book, again, is From Cold War to Hot Peace. Ambassador Michael Mcfaul, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks.
Chris?
All right, President Trump beaming with pride because 3 American prisoners stepped foot on U.S. soil. Is it the best moment of Trump's presidency? Let's discuss with CNN's Jake Tapper, who has some kind of